Beneath this ridge lies the city of hidden tunnels. Above it stands one of the most important memorials of the First World War. In April 1917, Canadian forces achieved a victory that would become part of a nation's identity. Today, I'm visiting Vimy Ridge. After leaving the Somme behind, I travelled north towards Vimy Ridge. Rising above the former battlefield stands the Canadian National Vimy Memorial, one of the most impressive and recognisable monuments on the Western Front. Rising for miles across the surrounding countryside, it serves as a lasting tribute to the Canadians who fought and died in France during the First World War. The memorial bears the names of more than 11,000 Canadian soldiers who have no known grave and whose final resting place remains unknown. Designed by Canadian sculptor Walter Seymour Allward, the monument took more than a decade to complete and was unveiled in 1936. Standing here today, it is impossible not to be struck by its scale and beauty. Yet beyond the stone and sculpture lies a deeper significance. For many Canadians, Vimy Ridge represents a defining moment in the nation's history. It was here that soldiers from every province of Canada fought together as a single corps for the first time. More than a century later, the memorial continues to attract visitors from around the world and remains a powerful symbol of remembrance, sacrifice, and national identity. To understand why Vimy Ridge holds such significance, it is important to understand the battle that was fought here in April 1917. Rising above the surrounding plain, it offered commanding views of the battlefield below and was considered a key strategic objective. Previous attempt to capture the ridge had failed, costing thousands of British and French casualties. In preparation for a new assault, the Canadian Corps spent months planning and rehearsing every aspect of the attack. Extensive tunnels were dug beneath the battlefield, allowing troops to move forward under cover and emerge close to the front lines. At 5:30 a.m. on Easter Monday, the 9th of April 1917, the attack began. Protected by a creeping artillery barrage, Canadian troops advanced across the battlefield towards the German positions. Despite fierce resistance, the Canadians achieved objectives the previous attacks had failed to secure. Within days, most of the ridge had been captured. The victory came at a heavy cost. More than 10,000 Canadian soldiers were killed or wounded during the battle, including almost 3,600 who lost their lives. Yet the success of the operation became one of the most significant achievements of the Canadian Corps during the war. Today the battlefield has long since fallen silent, but the story of Vimy Ridge continues to be remembered by generations of Canadians and visitors from around the world. To gain a deeper understanding of the battle, I spent some time exploring the Visitor Centre and Museum. Through photographs, artefacts and personal accounts, the exhibits help bring the story of Vimy Ridge to life. While the memorial reflects the scale of the sacrifice, the museum focuses on the experiences of the individual soldiers who fought here. From uniforms and equipment to personal items carried into battle, each display offers a glimpse into the life on the Western Front. More than a century later, these artefacts continue to provide a powerful connection to the men who served at Vimy Ridge. Having learned more about the battle and the men who fought here, it was time to explore one of the most remarkable features of Vimy Ridge. Hidden beneath the battlefield lies an extensive network of tunnels used by Canadian forces in preparation for the attack.
Careful now. I like the fact they're locking us in there. And you were just...
In the months leading up to April 1917, Engineers and tunnelling companies worked underground, creating passages that allowed troops to move forward under the cover of darkness and out of sight of German observation. Some of these tunnels were equipped with lighting, water supplies, and even tramways used to transport men and equipment. Walking through them today offers a fascinating insight into the scale of preparation that went into the Battle of Vimy Ridge.
Can travel through. Perfect. Now you'll notice the very different temperature down here. Yeah, the tunnels stay at around 6 to 8 degrees throughout the year, so they're pretty consistent. So in the summer it's like AC, in the winter it's like a little bit of warmth. So very different. But yeah, welcome to the Grange subway system. Right off the bat, you'll notice a couple of differences between the tunnels now and what they would have looked like in 1917. What do we think? What's different? The lights. Yeah.
lights.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Electrical, yeah.
Yeah, electrical. What else? What else is different?
Volunteers. Probably the mortar.
Yeah.
I was gonna say the old concrete reinforcements.
Yeah, the concrete reinforcements for sure. Yeah, you guys got the really big one. So the concrete, definitely not a resource that the Canadians had at the time. Well, you'll notice though, as we go on our tour, you can kind of finish off in the German trenches, and the Germans did have concrete. So they put it over their observation posts, and were really here to stay. Like I said, they're on the defensive, whereas the Allied forces are on the offensive. So very different mentality of the Allies wanting to keep going, whereas the German forces want to build to stay, so they have much stronger fortifications.
They focused on quality.
Exactly, there you go. Whereas, yeah, exactly. So instead of using concrete, these tunnels were built in an arch shape, because arches are self-supporting structures. So not much else was needed to keep these tunnels upright. If there was ever any wood found, which was rare in 1917, as this land was already fought over multiple times, but if there was wood found, it would be put in any weaker spots, or also used to cross very muddy or wet sections of the tunnels or trenches. The second difference is the width of the tunnels. So in 1917, these would have been 1 to 1.5 meters in width and then 2 meters in height. Really meant for one person or one group to be using the tunnels in one direction. Nowadays, we can have like 30 visitors in here. It's much bigger, and it's just better for visitor protection as well. And then the last difference, or the biggest difference, is the electricity. So those circular lights that you see above you definitely would not have existed in 1917, but the lights that would have existed are more comparable to these security lights here. These are only 220 volts, and during the battles here in 1917, they would have been placed every 20 meters. So still not a lot of light. Sometimes soldiers would have candles, but you can imagine if they're getting ready for battle, they would have to put those candles down. If everyone is okay, I will switch off the lights to give you a feel of what this would have looked like at the time. If everyone is okay with that. Okay.
Let's go.
Oh my. Yeah, it is. Yeah, okay.
So on either side, you can see not much, especially not the end of the tunnel, and the security lights being every 20 meters doesn't help too much. So leading up to the attack on April 9th, around 36 hours before, 950 men from the 3rd Division would have used these tunnels, would have been waiting in these tunnels in the dark for the next command to begin the attack. So if you think it's crowded with 10 people or with 30, imagine how many people would have been here with 950. There was really no space to move, and also that aspect of not knowing what comes next, being in the dark, is very, very demotivating. The tunnel right next to me here is known as the 42nd Battalion Tunnel. The 42nd Battalion are also known as the Montreal Black Watch. They were one of 3 regiments or battalions that would have used this specific subway. So again, that rotation that I was talking about before, they would have shared this with 3 or 2 other battalions, each rotating every 4 to 6 days to use the subway system. But this specific tunnel was actually built by the Royal Engineers, who are a group of miners from the British Expeditionary Force. Now they're very good at their job. They were from Scotland and Wales, and many of them were miners even before the war began. But they were called up here because there was a big problem with the stone that they were finding in the walls here. Does anyone know what stone that might have been? Yeah, chalk. Yeah, good job. It's chalk. So chalk in the walls here. It's very easy to take out. It's malleable. It's soft, right? But it presented 2 problems. The first being it's very resonant, so it carries sound quite well. So if you are here and the German forces are right next to you, basically, can't make a lot of noise as you're digging through the chalk. So they were forced to use pickaxes and shovels as displayed here. That definitely elongated the process of excavating these tunnels, but it also added a new level of fear. There's accounts of both sides being able to hear the other's conversations, and sometimes they'd pinpoint the exact location of each other and then tunnel into each other. That results in fighting hand to hand down here in the tunnels. The second problem with chalk is it's a white rock. If it's brought up to the surface, it can't just be left out in the open, or else the other side will know how much is being taken out, where, what your positioning is, things like that. So while both sides did know that they were tunneling and counter-tunneling, they didn't want to give away your position. So what the Royal Engineers decided is, why don't we use sandbags to hide all the chalk in the sandbags, bring the sandbags up to the surface, and then hide them in the shell holes that were created, and then we can put mud over it so that it's super, super hidden. This is a great idea, but for each cubic meter of chalk that was taken out, 200 sandbags would be needed. So still a very, very long and laborious process. There's also another type of tunnel called a deep fighting tunnel. Those tunnels go 30 meters into the ground. So we're only 8 meters below now. That's 3 times what we are here. So that would require having air pumps as well as water pumps to access fresh water. And those deep fighting tunnels would be used in a mining strategy where the Allied forces would mine right beneath a German forces tunnel, put explosives or things of ammonol in there, and then when it blows up, the German forces tunnel also comes tumbling down. Both sides were using this tactic, and we'll be able to see one of the craters left, or one of the permanent marks on the land here today in no man's land.
As we made our way out of the tunnels towards the trench system, it was impossible not to reflect on the conditions faced by the men who fought here more than a century ago. Preserved among the trees, these trenches provide a rare opportunity to experience the battlefield much as it had appeared during the First World War. Although time and nature has softened the landscape, many of the original features remain clearly visible. One of the most striking aspects of the battlefield is the short distance between the opposing trenches. In some places, the German and Canadian trenches were separated by as little as 25 metres. Standing here today, it is difficult to imagine living and fighting so close to the enemy, often within earshot of one another. Walking through the trenches helps bring the story of Vimy Ridge to life in a way that books and photographs never can. From these positions, Canadian soldiers prepared to leave the relative safety of their trenches and advance across the open ground towards heavily defended German positions. Looking out across the battlefield today, it is difficult to imagine the noise, confusion and intensity of the fighting that took place here in April 1917. Yet the scars of war remain etched into the landscape, serving as a lasting reminder of the sacrifices made by those who fought here on the ridge. As my visit to Vimy Ridge came to an end, I found myself reflecting on everything I had seen throughout the day. From the Tyrone Memorial and fascinating museum exhibits to the underground tunnels and preserved trench systems, each part of the site tells a different chapter of the story. Together, they provide a powerful reminder of the courage, sacrifice and determination shown by those who fought here in April 1917. More than a century later, the battlefield has fallen silent, but the memory of those who served continues to live on. Standing here today, it is easy to understand why Vimy Ridge remains such an important place of remembrance. not only for Canadians, but from visitors from around the world. It is a place where history can still be seen, felt and remembered. Thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed joining me on this journey through the battlefields of France and Belgium, please consider liking the video and subscribing to my channel. I'm only just beginning my journey here on YouTube and your support is greatly appreciated. Join me next time as I continue exploring the battlefields, memorials and stories of the First World War. Until then, thank you for watching.